You ever had your own parents look you in the eye and treat you like a tenant instead of their child? That's what happened to me. I was 17 when the first hint dropped, right after I brought home a partial scholarship offer to a top-tier college. My mom smiled, said she was proud, and even hugged me. I should have known something was off. My dad poured a glass of wine and said, "You're growing up fast, Jordan. Might be time you started paying your way." I laughed. Thought he was joking. He wasn't. A month before my 18th birthday, they sat me down like it was a business meeting. Told me that once I turned legal, I'd need to either pay rent, $850 a month, or move out. Meanwhile, my older sister Chloe was upstairs in the guest room turned creative studio watching Netflix in pajamas. Unemployed. Contributed nothing. Paid nothing. I did the chores. Walked the dog. Picked up groceries. Studied my ass off. But I was the one they were ready to evict. And that's when I realized, sometimes the people who raise you will weaponize adulthood to justify neglect. This is the story of how I walked out, and why now they're begging me to come back. But they don't know what I know. Thank you for watching. If this story hit something deep inside you, drop a 1 in the comments. I read every one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because silence, when it's chosen, not forced, that's power. Our house sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac in Colorado Springs, one of those clean, HOA-polished neighborhoods where people wave when they drive by, but no one really knows your name. Inside that picture-perfect house, things were less pristine. My mom, Linda, ran the house like a PR firm. Everything had to look good. She was big on appearances. Iron napkins for guests, fresh flowers for Instagram stories, and rehearsed smiles for holiday cards. But when it came to real emotion, real love, that took too much effort. My dad, Martin, was quieter. Less performative. He didn't smile much, but he didn't argue either. His favorite phrases were, "It's not that deep and that's life." Chloe, my 27-year-old sister, still lived with us. Unemployed for the third year in a row, she liked to call herself in between passions. She slept late, posted motivational quotes online, and spent most of her day sketching half-finished art in the room that used to be the guest bedroom, until she claimed it. Tessa, the oldest, had moved out years ago. She kept her distance. Smart woman. Then there was me, Jordan. The responsible one. The invisible achiever. The daughter who never asked for anything, because I knew the answer would be guilt or silence. I did my own laundry by age 11. I learned to keep my head down, stay out of Chloe's way, and only speak when I had something impressive to offer. So when I got that scholarship letter in the mail, I thought, maybe this time, they'll be proud. They were. For about 7 minutes. Mom made lasagna that night, her celebration dish, and even let me pick the wine. Chloe didn't say much during dinner, but that wasn't new. She stayed on her phone while my dad talked about how proud he was. It felt good. Not warm, exactly. But less cold. I was soaking up every second of it like a plant desperate for sunlight. Then, right after dessert, my dad cleared his throat. He set down his fork slowly, like he was teeing up for a speech. "You know, Jordan," he said, "you've really grown up a lot this past year. It's impressive. And we think you're ready for the next step." I smiled. "What step?" He looked at Mom. She nodded slightly, not making eye contact with me. "We've decided," he said, "that once you turn 18, you'll start contributing rent. We talked about $850 a month." The air turned thick. I felt the lasagna turn to cement in my stomach. At first, I laughed. I thought it was a joke, a weird one, but a joke. Then I saw Mom's expression. Calm. Controlled. Like she'd already prepared a script for this moment. "You're going to be an adult," she said. "Adults pay rent. And Chloe, well, her situation is different." Chloe didn't even look up. "Her situation?" She hadn't worked in almost 3 years. She didn't help with bills. She didn't even do the dishes. Meanwhile, I walked the dog every morning, did my own grocery runs, cleaned the house on weekends, and picked up a freelance gig editing videos just to start saving early. I swallowed hard, trying not to let my voice shake. Chloe lives here for free. She's figuring things out, Mom replied. Besides, you'll have to pay rent in college anyway. This way, you'll be prepared. My hands curled into fists in my lap. Prepared? They wanted to prepare me by charging me more than I'd be paying to share an apartment off campus. They wanted me to carry the load while Chloe watched from the couch with her iced coffee and yoga pants and talked about manifesting opportunities. It wasn't just unfair, it was humiliating. They weren't asking me to step up. They were pushing me out. And the worst part? They didn't even have the decency to say it out loud. I sat through the rest of that dinner in silence, nodding when they talked, pretending I was fine. But inside, something cracked. It wasn't rage. It wasn't sadness. It was clarity. I wasn't a daughter in that house anymore. I was a line item on a spreadsheet. A few nights later, I stayed up late to finish editing a freelance project. I'd been quiet all day, and no one seemed to notice. Around 1 a.m., I got up to stretch and heard voices drifting from downstairs. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but I froze on the landing when I heard my name. She said she's thinking about moving out, my mom whispered. She didn't sound worried, she sounded relieved. Chloe chuckled. Perfect. Once she's out, I can finally turn that room into the full studio. Natural light from both windows. I could finally get serious about this. There was a beat of silence. Then Mom said, "You deserve it, sweetheart. You've been through a lot." I backed away before I could hear anything else. I didn't need to. They were already planning who'd get my space, like I was some roommate ending a lease, not their daughter. They were talking about my bedroom like it was prime real estate finally becoming available. Not even a week had passed since they dropped the rent ultimatum, and they were already redecorating in their heads. That was when the pit in my stomach turned into a knot of steel. It wasn't just that they didn't want me there, it was that they were waiting for me to leave. Hoping for it. Planning around it. My silence was convenient. My ambition was useful. But me? I was just a placeholder in a house that had already decided to move on without me. And Chloe? She wasn't just being coddled, she was being handed my future. That's when it hit me. I wasn't a daughter. I was an obstacle. A glitch in their retirement timeline. An extra mouth to feed. A name they were waiting to erase from the mailbox. All the times I thought maybe if I just keep my head down, maybe they'll see me. Lies I told myself to survive. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I opened a blank Google Doc, titled it Plan, and started mapping out the next 30 days of my exit. If they wanted me gone, fine. But they'd never forget the way I left. By the next morning, I was done playing nice. I started combing through forums and social pages from my future college, Discord servers, housing boards, Facebook groups, looking for roommates who needed one more to split the rent. Within days, I found 2 girls with a small place 5 minutes from campus. Rent? Way cheaper than what my parents wanted from me. Bonus? They seemed kind. I didn't say a word at home. Just smiled at the breakfast table and did the dishes like always. Meanwhile, I started boxing up my things, slowly. Secretly. Off-season clothes went into empty suitcases in the garage. Books and supplies I didn't need for school went into donation boxes I carefully labeled and tucked under my bed. At night, after homework and chores, I edited videos for clients until my fingers ached. Birthday videos, graduation montages, travel edits. Whatever paid. I took every gig I could find and stacked the cash. If my parents wanted to run their home like a business, I was going to treat my departure like a transaction. And I wasn't leaving any loose ends. That month, something in the house shifted. Not in a big, dramatic way, but in small, cutting ways you only notice when you're paying attention. Linda stopped asking how school was going. Her tone turned clipped, managerial. Martin barely spoke to me at all. Just nodded when I passed him in the hallway like I was one of his co-workers, not his kid. And Chloe? Chloe got bold. She started parking in my spot in the driveway. Left paint supplies in the upstairs bathroom, the one we used to share before she declared it her creative reset zone. One night, I caught her wearing my sweatshirt. The Navy college one I'd worked a summer to buy. "Relax," she said, stretching it out and walking away. "You'll be gone soon anyway." And that was the unspoken truth hanging in the air now. I didn't belong here anymore. I was dead weight in a house already mourning my absence in advance. They weren't pushing me out. They were pretending I'd never been here to begin with. And somehow, that made it easier to leave. The night before my 18th birthday, I stayed up late packing the last of my things. Everything I could carry was ready to go, taped, zipped, labeled. Before I slept, I wrote a note. Just a few lines, folded into a small envelope, and slid under the edge of my pillow. Not to be dramatic. Just in case someone looked for me when I was gone. Thanks for raising me. I hope it was worth the investment. I'll cover the cost of existing from here on out. Don't worry about the room. It's all yours now. And Chloe, check the closet. I left the light on for your studio. Should be perfect. I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. In that moment, my silence was louder than any confrontation. And by morning, I'd be gone. It was supposed to stay hidden. I kept my journal tucked behind the bottom drawer of my desk, under a tangle of old cords and notebooks, my one place to spill the thoughts I couldn't say out loud. Late-night doubts. Things I wish I could scream. Everything I'd swallowed since they told me I had to pay to stay in the house I grew up in. But Chloe found it. The morning of my birthday, just hours before the moving truck was due, I came downstairs to find her already at the table. Coffee in hand. That look on her face, the smirk she wore when she was about to light something on fire and pretend it was an accident. "Oh, listen to this," she said, flipping a page. "I feel like I'm vanishing in a house full of people who would celebrate my absence." She looked up. "Dramatic much?" My blood ran cold. I stopped in the hallway, just out of view. "It's like I'm renting space in a home that already replaced me." Chloe's voice twisted the words into something ugly. "Even my dog doesn't wait at the door anymore." Martin chuckled into his coffee. Teenagers and their emotions. Linda didn't even look up from her phone. Maybe she should try writing something useful. They were all laughing. Not cruelly. Not viciously. But casually. Like my pain was a punchline in a sitcom they didn't realize I was still starring in. I walked in without a word. Picked up a piece of toast. Sat down. Chloe slid the journal toward me across the table like it was some broken toy I'd left behind. "You might want to work on your metaphors. That whole ghost in my own house bit? Little much." I didn't speak. I didn't flinch. I ate my toast slowly, steadily, while the silence stretched around me like a curtain. No defense. No apology. Let them see the version of me they didn't know how to handle, the one that had nothing left to lose. And as I stood up and walked back upstairs, my heart was already miles away. The truck rolled up just after sunrise. No one else was awake yet. The house was still. Quiet. You'd never guess it was the setting of a slow-motion betrayal. I opened the front door without a sound. The movers were efficient, 2 guys in hoodies, coffee in one hand, clipboard in the other. They didn't ask questions. Just nodded when I pointed out the labeled boxes stacked in the garage, the small suitcase by the door, the last-minute backpack slung over my shoulder. As they loaded everything up, I walked through the house one final time. Not for nostalgia. For closure. The smell of fresh coffee still lingered from the kitchen. The living room was spotless, like always. My mom's throw pillows sat in perfect corners on the couch. The photos on the wall? All of us smiling. Frozen lies framed in Target glass. No one had come downstairs yet. So I left the note. Folded, simple, placed neatly under the sugar jar by the coffee machine. Then I turned the doorknob and walked out without looking back. I was almost at the truck when I heard it. Jordan? My mother stood in the doorway, arms folded, confusion creasing her face. What is this? I didn't slow down. I handed the driver a tip and climbed into the cab. Martin appeared next, barefoot on the porch, hair still messy from sleep. He looked less angry, more baffled, like he'd stumbled into the wrong scene of someone else's life. Are you serious right now? He called out. You're really doing this? I leaned out the window, met their eyes for the last time, and said, calmly. You told me to act like an adult. I did. The driver started the engine. Chloe appeared behind them, arms crossed, her face unreadable. For once, she didn't say a word. They all just stood there. 3 stunned silhouettes watching the daughter they priced out of their lives roll away like she was never theirs to begin with. We drove for half an hour before I said anything. Then I just whispered, thank you, to no one in particular. The apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, creaky hardwood floors, and a weird lemon smell in the hallway. But it was mine. The walls weren't covered in passive aggression. No one told me to be quieter, work harder, smile more. My roommates met me with sleepy grins and mugs of coffee. One of them handed me a donut. The other asked if I liked horror movies. I said yes. And I meant it. For the first time in years, the air felt light. Not free. Not perfect. But mine. 2 days after the move, my phone lit up with a call from a number I hadn't seen in months. Tessa. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. Then I picked up. There was no hi, no small talk. Just her voice, low and certain. I saw the group chat. I saw what they're saying about you. I closed my eyes. Let me guess, ungrateful, dramatic, abandoned the family like some reality TV villain? She sighed. Pretty much. Then she paused. I could hear her pacing, probably in her little apartment back in Seattle. I'm proud of you, Jordan. I should have done what you did. I just didn't have the guts. That caught me off guard. What do you mean? They tried the same thing with me, you know. After I graduated. Dad wanted me to start paying board while Chloe got a trip to Italy for finding her passion. I said no. They said I was being selfish. Then one day, they changed the Wi-Fi password and told me it was time I learned about consequences. My stomach twisted. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because I thought maybe they'd be better with you. I didn't want to poison you against them. But it wasn't different. It was just quieter. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. Then she added, softer, you weren't the first. You were just the first to leave on your own terms. I didn't realize I was crying until the silence filled with the sound of my own breath hitching. I don't know what I'm going to do about tuition, I said. They haven't cut me off yet, but I know it's coming. I'll help, she said immediately. Tess. I'm serious. I've got some savings. I'll co-sign a loan if we need to. We'll figure it out. I didn't know what to say. All I could do was nod, even though she couldn't see me. And Jordan, she said before we hung up. Yeah? You're not alone. You never were. You were just braver than the rest of us. It didn't take long for the cracks to show. By the end of the first week, Chloe had posted a long, cryptic caption on Instagram with a black and white selfie. Some people are so selfish. You give them everything and they still act like victims. I wasn't tagged, but everyone knew who she meant. My parents stayed quieter on social media, but Tessa said the house was already unraveling. Chloe had started sleeping in my room, sorry, her studio, but hadn't cleaned a thing. Dishes piled up in the sink. The dog stopped eating. The air was tense enough that Linda snapped at a cashier for double-bagging with attitude and Martin stayed holed up in his office like it was a bunker. There was no more smiling over lasagna. No fake brunch photos. Just silence, and simmering resentment, and a house full of tension with no one left to absorb it. They were learning what it felt like when the one person who held things together left the table. And that's when the messages started. It began with a casual, clearly fake kind of warmth. "Mom, just checking in. Hope school's going well. Call when you can. Dad, let's talk like adults. You made your point." Then came the guilt. "Chloe, you really hurt Mom. She cried last night. I hope you're happy. Mom, I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me? Dad, we sacrificed so much. The least you could do is talk to your mother." And finally, the begging. "Mom, okay. Maybe we were harsh. Just come home. We'll figure it out. Chloe, I'm not okay. I need my sister. Dad, we miss you. Please don't cut us off over one disagreement." The desperation was almost theatrical. One minute, I was a selfish brat, the next, I was the glue they suddenly remembered they'd lost. I read every message. Every voicemail, every DM, every "Hey, can we talk?" But I didn't answer. Not because I didn't care. But because I finally did, about myself. The thing about people who silence you for years is that when you finally go quiet by choice, it terrifies them. They don't know what to do with your peace, your distance, your decision to disengage. I had always been the one to fold first. To apologize just to keep the air calm. To downplay my own hurt because someone else might cry louder. Not this time. I wasn't mad anymore. I wasn't sad, either. I was done. And in that stillness, I realized something. They'd never heard my voice because they never listened. And now? They never would. The letter came in a plain white envelope with no return address, just my name printed in sharp, all-caps handwriting across the front. I knew it was from my father before I even opened it. Something about the weight of it. The way the ink pressed a little too hard on the paper. I sat on my bed and unfolded the single sheet slowly. "Jordan," it began. "I'm not good with words. You know that. But I wanted you to hear this from me, not your mother, not Chloe, not through a text message we send too late to matter. You were never the problem. We were." I blinked. He continued. "We let our fear of failure shape how we raised you. We poured everything into Chloe, hoping she'd become what we couldn't, and when she didn't, we blamed everyone but ourselves. You were so capable, so quiet, we convinced ourselves you didn't need as much. That you were okay. We were wrong. And we know it now. I know it. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know, we see it. We see you." It wasn't long. It didn't beg. It didn't grovel. It was just honest. For a moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, a pang of something that almost resembled grief. Not for him, or for them, but for the version of me that waited for this kind of letter for years. The kid who would have given anything to be seen like this. But that kid was gone now. I folded the letter slowly, neatly, and tucked it into the back of my desk drawer, beneath my journals. I didn't frame it. I didn't rip it up. I didn't text him back. Some things don't need closure. Some things are finished the moment you decide to stop fighting for the love you were never going to get. I stood up, opened the window, and let the cold air rush in. And just like that, I moved on. Some people say leaving is easy. It's not. It takes everything, every ounce of strength you didn't know you had, to walk away from the people who raised you, the ones you spent your whole life trying to please. But what no one tells you is that staying quiet costs more. For years, I believed that if I just worked hard enough, stayed small enough, helpful enough, quiet enough, they'd love me the way I needed them to. But all that silence? It didn't earn me love. It just made it easier for them to ignore me. I left because they made it clear I was no longer a daughter, I was an expense. A disruption. A shadow they couldn't control. And in the end, they weren't shocked that I left. They were shocked that I didn't look back. Because silence, when chosen, not forced, is power. And peace, when earned, not handed, is freedom. I didn't run away from them. I ran toward me. And maybe that's what growing up really is, finally realizing that your worth was never up for negotiation. This story isn't just about rent. It's about respect. It's about choosing your dignity over their comfort. It's about knowing that family doesn't get a free pass to mistreat you just because they share your name. And sometimes, the loudest thing you can do is leave without saying a word. Have you ever had to walk away from someone who said they loved you, but treated you like you were disposable? If so, what gave you the strength? Was it one moment? One sentence? Or did it build up over years of silence? Whatever your story is, I hope you know this, you're not alone. And walking away doesn't make you cold. It means you finally chose yourself. Drop your story in the comments. You never know who needs to hear it today. And maybe, just maybe, your voice will be the one that helps someone else find theirs.